Hello and welcome to this latest video in our series celebrating Code Week. This time we'll once again be focusing on the Swift Playgrounds app as featured in Apple's Everyone Can Code series of books. Over the next few minutes you'll learn some tips and tricks to make sure that you and your students are more familiar with some of the features of the app and so helping you facilitate learning in your classroom. Well, here I am in my Swift Playgrounds app, and you can see that I've got the Learn to Code 1 playground installed. If I look towards the bottom of the screen, I've got access to more playgrounds. And if I tap See All, this opens up all the playgrounds that I can acquire. There are more playgrounds for Learn to Code, but there are also challenges and playgrounds to control physical systems, LEGO Education, Mindstorms EV3 and Sphero. To get any of these playgrounds, all you need to do is tap Get, and that will install the playground directly onto your iPad. And as soon as it's installed, we can tap it and you're ready to go with a brand new activity. Just before we move away from this home screen, there are two more features I'd like to tell you about. Firstly, in the top right hand corner, you can see a help icon. If I give it a tap, this brings up this little window that gives me some common issues that I might find I have as I work my way through the app. And tapping any of these headings, let's just go for Explore Challenges, will bring up a page of information that's really neatly laid out and really easy to understand. Secondly, in the top left of my screen, just next to the Locations button, I can see an icon that will allow me to start a new playground of my own. So if I just tap that, that will launch my new playground. It's not a tutorial, I'm not working through it, it's not like Everyone Can Code, and this is something that your students might want to explore as they become more proficient and more familiar with the Swift programming language. So I'm back in Learn to Code 1, which you'll recognise from our last video, and I want to show you some of the really helpful features that you'll find inside Swift Playgrounds. In the middle of our screen and towards the top, you'll see three little dots. If I tap on them, this opens a little menu system. We're not going to look at every tool in this menu system, just two or three that are going to be really useful to you. My first option, Playgrounds Help, actually takes me to the same help menu that we've looked at previously. And the third option down, the glossary, is incredibly helpful. If I tap that, it opens up quite a lengthy document that very neatly explains a lot of the coding language that your students will be faced with as they work their way through these Swift Playgrounds and other coding activities that you might do in your classroom. Lastly, from these tools, in that middle section, you can see an option that says Record Movie. If I tap this, it opens up a dialog box at the top of my screen that allows me to quickly screen record everything I do within Swift Playgrounds. And this can be extremely useful to you as teachers when you're preparing resources, or indeed if you want students to capture what they've been doing so you can review it with them at a later date. Any videos that you record will be saved in your Photos app. The last tip in this video focuses around how we run our code. You can see on the right hand side of the screen towards the bottom there's a button that says Run My Code, and you know from the last video that when I tap that, Byte, our little character, will execute any code that we've inputted on the left. But just to the left of that button is a little dial, and if I tap that, I get some options as to how I run my code. You can see that we can speed Byte up, and that might be very useful, particularly as our code gets longer and more involved. But the one I want to show you is the option that says Step Through My Code. If I select Step Through My code will run, but just look to the left of the screen where we have those lines of code. Here we go. So Byte will start, and you can see on the left there's a visual representation of my code each step as it runs through the program. And that's incredibly useful to your students, particularly if they need to go back and debug their code and find any errors.